Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 213 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast. And you may notice the listening experience will be a little bit different on your end, but don't worry, it's different on my end too. And I'll explain both of those, starting with your end. Because we're doing a bit of a solo podcast this time around. I get a little nervous when I have to do these because, I'm so used to having such excellent co-hosts at my side to help further the discussion. But this time around, I decided, let me do a solo show because, as many of you know, I attended an event for the Outer Worlds to play the game. Private Division flew me out. And so what I wanted to do was answer all of your burning questions from both the Patreon Discord as well as Twitter. What I asked for you guys on Twitter, my Twitter is at G27status, was to pretty much ask your questions and click like on the ones that seem the most relevant, let them bubble to the top so I can get the most pressing ones first. And also, speaking of the Patreon earlier, if you want to support the show, you just got to flick a buck at us. $1 single gets you early access. It also allows you to enter our Discord, and in that Discord, you get access to literally one of the best internet communities ever. One of the most nicest, encouraging groups of people I have ever had the pleasure of encountering. And on top of that, you can be a part of the show. I'll be answering Patreon questions at the end of the show because they actually didn't ask any Outer Worlds related questions. They asked more life stuff and more outside of game stuff. So we'll be trying to keep some of the similar structure, but this time around, no news, no Karak and Matty banter. I told Karak, look, dude, you do 3 podcasts every Friday. Why don't you take one off? It's all right. It doesn't make sense in a way for him to be on in this episode. I pitched the idea of whether or not he wanted to actually ask me the questions, but he never got back to me. So I said, you know what? I'll just do the solo show, give him the week off, and we'll go from there. So once again, all of your Twitter questions are coming to my handle at G27status. If you want to follow me there for hot takes, great gaming opinions, and whatnot, and you can also ask me questions about these events. But before actually I get into all of that, I want to thank you guys so much for the support on the Outer Worlds content. It hasn't been explosive like I'd say events such as Fallout 76 and Borderlands 3, but that's okay because I know some of the hype for the Outer Worlds sort of got died down when people started to realize the travesty that was the Epic Game Store deal, and people are very strong on that, and I completely respect and understand that. But for those that didn't care or like games more than their hatred for the Epic Game Store, that's where my coverage came in so far. The brutally honest opinion videos, which historically have always done well thanks to your support and your trust in me, more importantly, believing that, I go in there and I make sure I strip all bias away and I just give you guys the raw, hot opinion right there. And that video is just about to surpass 100,000 views. I really appreciate that. It means the world to see you guys care about my coverage when I get my hands on it. I try to make it worth your time when I'm out there. So that's why you guys have been seeing me pump out so much Outer Worlds content, aside from it being relevant. On top of that, we've seen some success with videos like the level system guide. The top 5 videos tend to do well for these event coverages. And it feels good to have a system in place for these types of things because they can be very haphazard and your brain can be all over the place. So long-winded way of saying I appreciate you guys so much, and thank you for being a part of what I'm doing here. August and September are going to be the biggest months of the year for me. I might be wrong. Maybe October and November things really pick up, but these next 2 months are going to be gigantic for the channel, really, in the terms of announcements and projects that have been underway for multiple years to finally be revealed. So I'm really excited with where things are heading. A lot of the patrons know about it because a lot of it is thanks to their support over there. That's why I always emphasize you guys are just the best community I could ever ask for. So, and that does not exclude anyone who, listens for free or just watches videos for free. I appreciate you equally. Just the patrons have made some opportunities for me available that I never thought I could dream of. So I'm thinking September is where things are really going to start to pop off. But anyways, for now, thank you guys so much. Let's get on over to your Twitter questions. So we'll start off with just labeling handles and reading them, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on them. The first one comes from Brandon Bennett, at Brandon Bennett, rather. Do you think the gameplay has a chance to get repetitive after long sessions? And if so, do you think the storytelling is something that will keep the game interesting and provide a narrative that shouldn't be slept on? And you'll notice some of these questions are very future-proof, right? Like a lot of these questions, people want to know, can I buy into this or that? You'll notice a trend with that. So I'll try my best to answer that as honestly as possible without giving you guys full confirmation because, in this situation where I did not play the full game. In fact, the version I played was not the final product. Things can change. But based off your question, does the gameplay have a chance of getting repetitive after long sessions? I personally don't think so. And the reason I say this is because you pick a playstyle in an RPG, and the systems in the Outer Worlds, as I highlighted in my leveling breakdown system, or system breakdown rather, they emphasize the way you're playing. And so you're always building upon those systems. And I like that. It's a good feeling to get stronger in an area that you're practicing in. It's like picking up a martial arts, or it's like practicing anything in life, really. You get better as you invest more time into that thing. And it's the same thing in an RPG. As you invest more into a skill, you get better. And the Outer Worlds really emphasizes that. So I don't think the gameplay is going to get repetitive, because on top of that, there's a lot of ways to play. You know, obviously there's stealth, there's the leader way to play, there's guns blazing, and then there's science weaponry. So I think what we have on our hands is sort of a New Vegas situation. If the narrative pans out properly, it's that replayable, where the gameplay I think will be fine. I mean, you got to go in there with reasonable expectations, right? Obsidian's never been known for their gameplay, and in my opinion, these are the sharpest systems and gameplay that their titles have seen yet. You know, system-wise, I'd say New Vegas obviously edges it out. But what I mean by that, I mean how everything's interconnected and works together, and how expansive it is. It's quite impressive that it's an Obsidian game, although it's strange because they're trying to market it as a big game, but they're also in interviews saying, like, yeah, it's a 15 to 40-hour game, it's not AAA and all that stuff. So it's quite interesting. Did they confirm how many companions would be in the game? This comes from @enter_username. They never did confirm how many companions would be in the title. He also asks, is there a weapon similar to the Fat Man from Fallout? That would probably fall under the science weaponry. I did not see that, but as far as I know, there was not a confirmation on companions that would be in the game. We know there's Parvati, Nyoka, and we saw two others. I think one was Ellie, and another was some guy. So far, we know only of 4. I want to say there'll probably be 8. And I'm happy that they're sort of keeping the companion stuff down, because the companion part of the demo I played was the most I experienced, and it was very interesting. It was very entertaining. So I'm glad they're keeping that close to their chest. And I try to strike that balance personally as someone who covers these games, of keeping myself in the dark on certain things that would make the game more enjoyable for me, but also giving you guys accurate, honest, and to the moment coverage. So this one comes from Games and Groceries. Games and Groceries is actually a podcast I guested on. If you guys want to get to know me better, this is one that you should definitely give a listen to. It's hosted by Adam, a friend of mine. He is also a patron. Great show. Really awesome guy with his wife, Liz. Awesome person as well. I'd appreciate you guys giving them a look. But he asks, does it have any elements to be a contender for Game of the Year, or will this only be in categories like Best RPG, etc.? Kind of a tough question since it hasn't had its full release yet, but did you see anything that sticks out from other 2019 releases? Now, I thought this was a great question, because I know some people will scoff and go, how can Matty tell if it's a Game of the Year contender or not? And I can't. But I think the second part of his question is really important. He says, did you see anything that sticks out from other 2019 releases? And yeah, that's what makes it such a unique game, and why I'm so excited for it, is because for my audience, for myself personally, you know, this is a game that represents in many ways fundamentally the types of titles I grew up on, and also grew my channel off of, right? Like, we love the Fallout 3, New Vegas, and the old Fallouts. And this game has a lot of that DNA in there. So for me, it's like, yeah, we've seen this stuff before. It's just been so long since we've actually seen these systems. Like the way the text boxes are, the way that the camera zooms in on the person you're talking to and it sort of stays there locked in place. That type of stuff. It can be considered finicky and janky, which is why it's not going to hit any Game of the Year lists for people who don't obsess over this stuff like I do. But I personally think that's stuff that makes it stand out, because it's unapologetically what it wants to be. It wants to be a semi-open RPG, kind of like KOTOR, kind of like Fallout New Vegas, and I think from what I played, it successfully does that. So, yeah, it would definitely land in Best RPG category. I think it'd be silly to not have this game in the conversation. Not saying it is one of the best, but it's going to be discussed if it should be on that list in the first place. But Game of the Year-wise, I didn't see the amount of polish there, the amount of, triple A-ness, so to say. Is that even a term? The triple A-ness that's in this game. You just look at a God of War versus the Outer Worlds, right? There's just a complete different level of budget there. I forgot. I never told you guys why the podcast will be different on my end. I apologize. I'm going to interrupt the questions for a second because I was about to move on and it just hit me. The reason it's different on my end, because I said to you guys, it's a solo show, but the reason it's different on my end, I'm doing this in bed. It's thundering a little bit. It's starting to rain here. And I thought, this would be kind of cozy. Let me just try this out. So that's what's different on my end. I don't think anything sounds different for you guys. The mic's currently sitting on my fluffy dog blanket. So yeah, get yourself a podcaster who does his shows in bed. Tell me how many do that. And tell me how many do them. Wait, hold on. Tell me how many of them do them great as well. I tried to get that out with stuttering, and here we are. Anyway, let's keep on scrolling here because this one was a statement, not a question. Here we go. At the Nuka-Cola Man, how confident are you about its release? I haven't pre-ordered anything in years because of bad shit happening, but this is the first one I'm considering, and I don't want to be burned again. So I have an interesting take on pre-orders because I know I'm very, consumer friendly on my channel. I'm for the buyer, not the seller. But in this situation here, when it comes to pre-ordering, it's always an interesting line to straddle because I feel like I always pre-order games. I don't anymore because, number one, I wait for reviews if I can't get a review code, and that's part two, right? I'm lucky enough to have some of these games dispersed to me free of cost until I usually pay for them if I have the means to do so. I pay for them during my review process, so my money's on the line. I got that little tip from Karak, and I think it makes my reviews a little more authentic because I know my money's on the table and what I'm playing was money spent. But anyway, when it comes to pre-ordering, I always pre-ordered games originally because, not to secure my copy, but because I knew I was interested in something. And so my suggestion is I liked what was there, right? And I wouldn't let that be the definitive thing, but if you see this game and it speaks to you and what you like, whether you believe it was in a controlled environment or not, I personally didn't think it was because we saw the PAX East demo for the Outer Worlds. I mean, for God's sakes, they brought the game out there and showed 20 minutes of the title without any dialogue or anything, man. It was just like a very janky demo just to show off the game a little bit more. And I feel like there's been a level of transparency with this company where I would have, if I were in your shoes, feel comfortable pre-ordering. But, the other thing is, I also look at it where sometimes you just got to cut through the weeds of these reviews. Like, you may hear one of my reviews or one of Karak's reviews, one of IGN's, whoever, and they may steer you away from a game or toward a game, and then you play it and you either like it or don't like it, right? So, for example, a lot of people talk about this title now, I'd say is Mario Odyssey. This is a game that ranked stupidly high on Metacritic, but I've seen countless people buy it and go, why is this ranked so high? I don't think it's that great. And I think the people who ranked it higher, A, the people who love Mario, B, there is this cool thing called the Nintendo Bump, which exists for a lot of prolific developer. I can't talk this podcast. What are we, 13 minutes in? Karak's got to get me under control, man. But prolific developers, I'd say Kojima, I'd say during the golden era of Bethesda game studios, there might have been a bump because people were much more forgiving of their bugs and glitches compared to how they are nowadays. But yeah, man, it's really up to you on whether or not you want to cut through those weeds and try out this game for yourself. I'm a believer that, hey, man, if you like what's there, go pick it up. There's nothing wrong with that. I think pre-ordering sometimes gets a bad stigma. Because people are like, developers are getting their money, or publishers are getting your money before you've even bought the product. Now, I think pre-ordering's bad if the game gets announced as a CGI trailer. Like if you pre-ordered Starfield right now, I think that's really stupid. I'm not going to curve my words there. I think that'd be really stupid. We know nothing about Starfield other than it's in space. But when you know about the product enough, and what are we, a month and a half out? Yeah, dude, go pre-order if you like what you saw there. But if you are scared of being burned, then wait for reviews. There's nothing wrong with being patient, because for me, if I were not a content creator, I always say to people, I'd still probably be grinding out on my PS2 sometimes. Like, I would not be playing every single game that came out. I think modern gaming in many ways is great, but I also think in many ways it sucks. There's a lot more duds nowadays, but there's also some super excellent games out there. But I definitely would advise caution. It's really up to you personally, but that's my advice there. Cam C. King Dom Ruler asks, do you feel like it's a game you will go back 2 years later? Loaded question, I know, but hey. Yeah, that is a loaded question. It's hard to tell if I know I'll be going back to it. I've noticed with me, there are very few single-player games that I go back to an absolute ton, unless it's like an RPG that's really good. I've gone back to Dragon Age Inquisition, or no, oh god, whoa, what just almost came out of my mouth? I promise you, I have never touched that game since I beat it. Holy smokes. Whew, close call. Dragon Age Origins was actually the title I was going to say. Dragon Age Origins I've gone back to multiple times. KOTOR, obviously, you guys have heard me a bunch of times about that. Persona 4, what else is on that list? Fallout, of course. And there are times I'll go back, like recently I went back to Spider-Man, just to web swing in New York City and just be a part of that world. It takes a really, really, really good game, but it also can take just a great RPG. Like Vampire was one of my favorite games of last year as a top 3 game. Definitely not one of like the best games of the generation. I'd say it'd be up there, like in the terms of RPG mechanics and systems and new ideas and an interesting world, but not like the best game of all time, but I went back to that because its RPG systems were fun to toy around with, and The Outer Worlds seems to have that, so I can definitely see this being a game I go back to years later. Part of that is also, is modding going to be on the table? If modding's on the table, absolutely, and you'll see this game be a part of my channel for years and years, just like a Fallout game would be, and that's kind of the dream, right? You know, this game is right up our alley. Do you think the Switch version will be worthwhile? Asks Grand Lotus 96. I want to get it because I don't care about visuals as much as I do content, but if they cut content for the Switch version, I wouldn't like it. I feel like with Switch versions, you see the adverse effect. I don't think I remember a Switch version that released and had content cut from it. And as far as I'm concerned, even if it's a 2015 game, if The Witcher 3 can squeeze onto the Switch with all of its DLC, one of the games I thought would just do base game only. We'll see how it runs, but if that can happen, I believe strongly The Outer Worlds will be just fine on the Switch. I don't know. Once again, it depends how much you demand this game right now. If there's other games you're targeting in the fall and you'd have more money for those and you love the idea of a Switch version for The Outer Worlds, absolutely wait, right? Because then you'll have reviews that you can go based off the base game, and then you can wait for reviews for the Switch version and find out more about performance. So in my opinion, yeah, it might be worth waiting just because you don't care about visuals, you care about content. And I'm very much in the same boat. I'll note visuals in my reviews, and especially in my brutally honest opinion about The Outer Worlds. It's a very pretty game. I love the visuals in that game because it's got such a rich art style, but it's not what, I'd say absolutely sells me on a game. So there you go, Austin. Hope I helped. If I like Fallout New Vegas while I like this, asks Isari Jean. I apologize if I said your name wrong. But his Twitter name is not my real name, so I guess that's not his name in his at. But if you like Fallout New Vegas, yeah, you'll like this game. There's a lot of DNA there that's from New Vegas. I guess it's just what's great about New Vegas is not only the amount of fates of people and towns and really just the world that you can change, but it's also the different ways you can play the title and the perk system. I will say the perk system lacks a little bit compared to New Vegas. New Vegas, for example, you'll have like 10 survival and like 15 medicine, and so you can unlock a special perk with that skill set. It does not work like that in the Outer Worlds. So keep that in mind for the gameplay system. That's not what you're getting into. What happens is you get like perk points, and you spend those perk points on tiers, and as you get more perks, like 5 perks in tier 1 unlocks tier 2. And obviously in the supernova difficulty, when you accept a flaw, you get a bonus perk point. So yeah, it's structured like that. It's still deep, but just know that's the difference from New Vegas, in my opinion, that I mainly saw. How well does it run on a scale of Ubisoft to Doom 2016? Asks Mr. Shadowkin. I didn't have anything I noticed in my gameplay that chugged, and I had to edit my gameplay a little bit because my voice volume was pretty low off the rip, and I thought that was just because the game was fairly mute. The rest of my volume was maxed out, but my voice volume was low. But anyway, when I went into those, when I looked around and was told people were watching gameplay, Grimblade, I feel like I mention him every podcast, but he mentioned that in Juicehead's gameplay video, he saw a little bit of chugging, and I don't talk about performance in previews because I've never, and I can almost guarantee will never be flown out by a company, have my hotel paid for them to have me play the most jank, busted game of all time, right? Like, there's no shot that ever happens. These companies pay for like top end PCs. They make sure that they run the game damn well. The PCs are literally bought for these previews. You can even see like when they tab out of the game, like there's just folders dedicated to this game and this coverage. So I don't trust the whole performance thing until I get my hands on the final product. That's why I don't talk about it much. But what I did play ran well. What I heard for Juicehead, it chugged ever so slightly every now and then. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Ement111 asks, how memorable is the lore and characters? Is it like a how do you do, fellow kids, or is it more interesting and realistic? I doubt it will be, but I'm just worried that things will be cringy. No, don't worry about that. Definitely nothing I experienced was cringy. Trust me, Wolfenstein Youngblood's got us covered on that. The lore is especially interesting because I was actually not super into the lore for the Outer Worlds. I was more so into it for its mechanics. I was into it because it was a type of game that was right up my alley, and the lore was sort of like a like down the list. And yeah, man, I always go back to this example, and I'm going to use it again. When I learned the truths behind Monarch and like how the planet got terraformed and how the plan came into place, like that was awesome stuff. And if you're curious, I don't think it's a major spoiler. It's in my hour plus gameplay on my channel. It is awesome. It is such a cool bit of info. So it definitely made me more optimistic for the lore. So in my opinion, I'd say it has a chance to be memorable. Anthony at Toasty Sofa asks, are you worried about the recycled New Vegas ideas will feel old and lazy? I think that's what people want. It doesn't feel that way, but I think that's what people want. They really want for this game to be just another New Vegas. So yeah, I think if that complaint starts coming around, the world will end. I haven't heard anything negative about New Vegas in a while. I'm not saying I want to, but I'd be super shocked if people started complaining about that. Papa Bless YouTube says, how does the gunplay feel, and what was the VATS like feature? If you were able to make any big choices, did they actually affect anything? Love your channel, man. Keep it up. Well, thank you for the love, first of all. First one on this list to say that, by the way. I'm just kidding. So gunplay felt sharp. I rated it around Fallout 4. Good RPG shooting is what I'd say in that case. The VATS like feature, tactical time dilation, TTD, a lot more useful than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be kind of useful because I play a ton of shooters. I play a ton of skill-based shooters. So, like Battalion. I know. I don't play Counter-Strike. I know. Go ahead, grill me, but I'm just not interested in that. But Battalion's up my alley because it's World War II. I play Smite, which involves a lot of skill shots. So for me, I didn't think I'd need TTD, but turns out it's really helpful for high-level enemies. You can like blind them, cripple them, whatever, and these status effects are really impactful, and then there are perks that you can use to buff that. So once again, RPG systems come into play. Daniel 54325154. Dude, why so many numbers in your @ why, bro? He asks, can you play the game with no companions? Yes, you can. There are lone wolf perks that reinforce that, in fact. So it makes you stronger for being by yourself. There's a skill that lets you speak better by yourself and increases all speech scales by 10. So really good stuff there. You can absolutely play this game by yourself. What other games would you compare the feeling of this one to? Asks Sumo Linked. I've kind of gone over it before. I'll say it again. Definitely the original Fallout 3 / New Vegas. Those immediately come to mind. But it's also its own thing. There's no like story or sci-fi feel like that. And in fact, this game might hit well with a lot of people because of its sci-fi nature. Think of what's happened in Mass Effect. Like, is there, No Man's Sky is kind of rising up, but that game's style just doesn't sync with me well. I went back for No Man's Sky next. Karak and I did like a dual critique on it, and it just didn't synchronize with me well. So for me, this is also exciting because it's a chance to get into a sci-fi universe for the first time in a while. Twitchy Tango asks, can I kill anything I come across? And also, why is Epic Games so scummy and taking all the exclusivities? We've talked about the Epic Games exclusivity stuff to death on the channel. So I'm just going to leave that out of the conversation just because if you guys want to know my thoughts, I have so many videos on it. But long story short, I think, it's pretty shitty. I get them trying to compete, but I think they're going about it the wrong way. Can I kill anything I've come across, though? Yes, that's what I've been told. I also was told in my interview, which is going to be airing in a couple of days after, or actually a day after the show, I think. Yeah, I have it scheduled for Tuesday. I interviewed the senior narrative designer, I believe she was, and she said that you can go through the game without killing anybody. So that was a confirmation. That was something we did not know previously, and now we do know. Oh my gosh, and two of the last questions, Cricket Man and Bit Informant asked, does it have a New Vegas feel, or is it all on its own? Is it like New Vegas? So a lot of you guys want to know if it's like New Vegas, and I've answered that one to death. The last Twitter question is from the Lemmy B. Is this the kind of game you will one day use in an example of why you love gaming, or does it miss the mark? Now, a lot of people will go like, oh, you can't tell that immediately, Matty, but there are situations like, pardon me, I need to take a sip of water, actually. Man, doing these by yourself just strains your voice. Anyway, what was I answering? Oh yeah, like there are games I've finished where I just instantly knew like this is one of my favorite games of all time, and I'm not hype beasted now. I'm not in the honeymoon phase. Like this is absolutely one of the best games I ever played. The most recent example of that being, apologies, that was my computer letting me know the battery's low. But anyway, one of the best examples is Nier Automata. So when I put down the Outer Worlds, I was excited for the future, but I feel that's a game's experience I need to complete. I definitely walked away with some gripes. Like I said, the HUD annoyed me. I was definitely bothered by the lack of music, ambient music. That was just a pet peeve of mine, essentially, but I think it's really important for aesthetic and atmosphere. Anyway, that's generally my take on all of your Twitter questions. I appreciate all of you chiming in for that. Let's get to the Patreon questions before my laptop dies. All right, so HR Hodes 1518 asks, what space would you like to see? Oh, I'm sorry. What time period? Hold on. Sorry, the way this question's worded. Okay, I get it now. What time period / style of game, medieval, feudal Japan, Midwest, space, would you like to see a stealth-based game in? Feudal Japan. Just like, I always think of, when I think of feudal Japan and stealth, I think it's Sly 4 by Sanzaru Games. The first chapter, you're in Japan, and one of Sly's ancestors is a sushi chef. I can't believe they're bringing back that series in a TV show, and they're not doing a game. That boggles my freaking mind. I really am stunned. Like, that is a series that people would go nuts over. I'm not even a PlayStation YouTuber. I'm not like an Xbox YouTuber or a PC YouTuber either. I'm just like a YouTuber who talks about games. But like, I'm not known for those types of games. You bet your butt, though, I'm covering Sly Cooper. Like, what? That series defined my childhood. Sly 2 was one of my favorite games of all time. Still is in my top 5. Johnsonville, I hear a lot about the Deus Ex series, but I've never given any of the games a try. Is it worth it jumping into now? If so, what game should I start with? I have an interesting opinion on the Deus Ex series. For me personally, I sit on the side of, I like the series. I played Mankind Divided. That was my first one. It was enjoyable, but it does one of these things. I think it was in the director's cut. But it does one of those things that bugs me in role-playing titles, and it's where it level ones you in the middle of the game. So you're doing all this leveling up, you're making all this progress, and then you get to a point in the story where they're like, all your shit's gone, everything. And you do get it after this section, but it's like that section just stinks. It's like, Why make me build up, have a plan, I'm mapping out how my character is, I want to play this way, to level 1 me and have me restart. And yeah, they accelerate the leveling a little bit, and it gives you this, like, faux level of progression. And I just don't like it. And I'm sure AC Denton, one of our patrons who loves the Deus Ex series so much, I'm sure he's throwing a shit conniption right now listening to this. But he actually answered this question and said, yes, Deus Ex 1 with GMDX installed. If you can't handle that, then play DX Revision. So he's definitely like a Deus Ex expert, loves the series. So I take what he's saying over what I'm saying in the terms of where you should start. That's just my opinion on the franchise. I don't think it's too late to start up. I just know that was Human Revolution was the second one. That's the one I started with. Mankind Divided was the third one. That's the one that had like I think apparently a soft ending, I heard, because it was split into 2 games, and now the company who worked on that is now working on Avengers, and so I'm kind of nervous for the future of Deus Ex, so I want to know that second half is coming before I get into Mankind Divided. Anyway, moving on, Grimblade asks, there has been a lot of discussion about the big hallmark feature of next gen, and I would like to see a massive improvement in game physics. What is one area of game physics you would like to see improved the most? Oh man, that's a very nuanced question. I always think of one time Noah, former host of the H.A.M Radio Podcast, for those who are new or don't remember, Noah sent me for Borderlands 2. This is back when I was playing on the 360. This is before the game came out. He sent me a NVIDIA trailer for Borderlands 2 on the PC, and it had a special physics program where there was like a tarp draped over like a fence in the level, and the wind would blow, and you'd see it like realistically moving the tarp. And so I think that type of stuff makes environments lifelike instead of everything being like a still asset. I'd love to see that. On top of that, I'd also like to see realistic hair. A lot of times we see games where like the hair is designed to flow in the wind, but sometimes you'll see it like pick up over the back of the character's head and drape in the front. And it gets all tangled and caught up. I'm sure there are countless examples we could come up with. I've just experienced it a lot where I think I've seen it in Souls games more so, or Neo, one of those two. Those bother me, so I'd like to see hair physics improve. Oh my god, The Witcher 3, I think that one had awful hair physics if Geralt had long hair. So that type of stuff bugs me. I would like to see that be improved for sure, because I love hair in real life, and I want to make sure that my hair is accurate in game too. All right. We also have Holzer. What game that you've played has the best AI? Oh my gosh. I think of like titles like XCOM that like really push me to my limits despite it being AI, Part of it's because they hit hard, but it never felt unfair. I feel like I'd say Dark Souls, but that's like almost you're manipulating the AI because you learn it so well. Like where's their weak spots, what can't they do, and you're almost like breaking the computer. Really tough question to answer. The Last of Us had excellent AI. I thought the way they flanked you, the communication they had, just next level, man. There's still not much like that. And that's kind of sad. And suddenly things may sound a little bit different based off the setup. My laptop died in the middle of recording, which is always great, right? You come up with this cool, fun idea, you make the podcast a little more comfortable for yourself, and you get punished for it. God forbid we lay in our bed and record our shows. But anyway, I'm just kidding. We're back at the desk. So I was in the middle of answering a question about what game has the best AI, and yeah, it's sad that The Last of Us is a title that I feel has yet to have its AI replicated. That is just a fantastic example. Next question comes from Destroy the Grave. This is Adam, who hosts Games and Groceries. Once again, really recommend you guys watch the episode I was on. It's awesome, man. I never get interviewed, so I'd appreciate you guys taking a look at that if you want to get to know me better, like how I responded to like the whole rag situation personally, and how I tried to turn my channel around, all that stuff. Really insightful stuff, I feel. But he asks, what are your personal definitions of success? So I cannot speak for Karak. But for me, this is going to be, it's going to get real, folks. It's going to get real. Because I go back and forth on success a lot, right? Like there are some times like I feel invincible. I'm like, I am the most successful man on the planet. And I feel like not to an arrogance standpoint, by the way, I should clarify that, but I feel like I would feel, continuously like that level of confidence if social media didn't exist. It's never caused me any type of like mental health problems, but sometimes you feel like you're not doing enough. Sometimes you feel like you're not succeeding as much as you are. Like it's easy, for example, for me to look at, we'll say a perfect example, keep it on the Outer Worlds. We just went to this event. We're all posting our coverage. And I'm sure there's someone out there who went to this event who's outperforming me somewhere. Like maybe they did a leveling guide. And whether it was better or not, who cares? They might be outperforming me. And nowadays, that's what happens. The higher numbers you get, that's how you can make your living. We eat too. And yeah, man, you could look at that and feel like, oh man, I'm not worth it. I'm not doing that well. But what I do, I make sure to try to strip that out of my mind as much as possible. It's sometimes hard not to feel incompetent, but you got to be able to transform that into a positive thing. So when I start to feel that way, like I did a couple of weeks ago where I clicked send tweet on like a really sappy thing. And I mean, tons of people really sent me some love, like big time love, like lots of YouTubers who I hadn't heard from in a while, who were saying they were feeling the same thing, but also people like I said, I hadn't heard from in a while, friends and whatnot. All like friends called me. It was kind of crazy. Like I just didn't expect that. When I was just like, hey guys, I kind of feel like a failure lately. I'm not trying to say it because I sound entitled, but like some stuff that I thought would be performing better isn't, and I'm just like kind of nervous and not feeling good. And a lot of people came to bat for me. And why I'm saying this is because you could turn that into a positive thing where you use it to charge forward. Like I did. I was like, okay, like this, like July was the worst month of the year for me. When it came to some emotional stuff, but also for my channel. Like the channel still did well enough, but it didn't perform to any of my standards. And it's a dead month in the year, but I foolishly expect like there's not going to be a dead month. But anyway, what I did was I was like, okay, at this point it was like, I knew I traveled out to the Outer Worlds. I was like, I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to grind on this content, not to the point where I get sick or anything, but I'm going to grind on this content. I'm going to another event later on. I'm going to work hard for that. I have this big project I'm finally going to announce to my audience within the next like month and a half, 2 months, I'd say. Like this is it. This is my time to shine. And so you turn it into something positive. So my definition of success becomes what makes you feel good through accomplishment. For me, I've been accomplishing a lot lately, and even little things. Like I built a deck in Dragon Ball Super. I tested it online, and I absolutely smoked people. And I was like, I'm successful at this too. I'm successful at playing a card game. Nowadays, take your small victories. Make them as big as your biggest victories, right? Like I think that's so important, is to celebrate yourself. Some people try to be humble, and you should be, but there's an extent where I became so humble that when I did something like fantastic, I didn't react to it. I didn't go like, damn, that like that was awesome of me. Like when I like scored my first goal in hockey, my friends were like, celebrating, like, dude, nice job, and like I was just like, yeah, big deal. And that's not me, first of all. And that's when you kind of note it's a problem. You're like, okay, I gotta celebrate stuff and not force it, but like, allow myself to. I was afraid of looking like a cocky douchebag. And so part of success is when you reach it, allow yourself to recognize it and celebrate it. This is why I want to do, an IRL kind of podcast advice talk show. 'Cause while I feel I have great insight on games, I think sometimes my insight on life can be better. I've been told endless amount of times that like my way of talking through situations and helping folks out has been really good. So we'll see where that goes. I got some ideas, but yeah, man, success should never be determined by a number. It's really hard not to feel that way in this type of game. I'm just speaking from personal experience. I'm not telling you guys how you should view success, but for me, my success, I think a lot of it boils down to a job, because I love working. I love my job. So a lot of it is, if my channel is doing well, I feel successful. I feel like my hard work is paying off and gaining your attention, your respect, more importantly. And so it feels great. On the other hand, though, success is happiness. I feel successful because I have a loving family. I feel successful because I have the best girlfriend I could ever ask for. I feel successful because of that type of stuff. I have wonderful friends, and that's a success in its own right. Good friends nowadays is such a freaking rare thing, if you couldn't tell. Faithful, loyal, incredible woman. I wouldn't say is super rare, but it can feel that way sometimes. At least in my day, when I was trying to date, it can be really tough to come across. And when you find like that person who's clearly the one, like that's a success. So what I guess my theme here is just celebrate yourself. Celebrate yourself where you can, when you can. Feel good about the things. But I'm not one of those people who's like, you got good grades, you're successful. I know people who are like, straight A's and they really haven't gone much of anywhere. And it's like, it's not about the grades, I feel. It's about what you do with yourself. So take with that what you will. That is my definition of success. Last question goes to Fat Ragnar. Do you guys think that this Blizzard hate is unnecessary? Yeah, they have made really dumb decisions in the past, but with Classic right around the corner and Roll Q coming to Overwatch, it just seems dumb that people think everything Blizzard does is bad. So this is a situation I haven't paid close attention to. I actually wasn't aware that there was this Blizzard hate train. I noticed it a little bit. People would get on their back about Overwatch with their lack of balancing and how they just completely ruined Mercy. And admittedly, Overwatch being in its first handful of seasons, one of my favorite multiplayer games ever. Like, Smite is probably my favorite multiplayer game ever. Overwatch was in that talk for a while, if it remained on the same course. But it's not there anymore because I don't play it anymore. And I have far more hours in Smite in total. But I still think that what I played when I went back about, I think it was really early in the year. I think it was in January. I went back and played, and I had a really good time. I thought it was fun still, but I understand there's a whole nother element. There's competitive stuff. And the reason I understand and get that is because I play competitive Call of Duty for fun with friends. And there's like, yeah, these are good in pubs, but these are good in competitive matches type of guns. I play Dragon Ball Super, the card game, competitively, like for winnings, for prizes. And I know that there's stuff I can come in and say, this is what we call it, a fun deck. Like, this is a fun deck. Like, I'm not going to win with this deck. This is not going to blow your socks off, but it's like, I'm going to see how far I can get with a fun deck. It's like definition of insanity type stuff. But then there's competitive meta decks. So I understand there's a whole nother section there. I played Overwatch's competitive mode for a while, though. But yeah, I don't think Roll Q solves Overwatch's issues. I heard that a lot of it was with hero balance. Maybe that's just me, though, but that's kind of just what I've heard overall. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that'll conclude episode 213 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I kept it entertaining for you guys, despite not having my wonderful co-host, Karak, across the web from me. I try my best, man. I appreciate you guys so much. And thank you for the amazing questions on both the Outer Worlds, life itself, and anything random and gaming related. We'll be back next week. It will upload on a Sunday as per usual. I don't like uploading the podcast on weekdays, trust me. But I just want to make sure this weekend I prioritized getting out the meaty part of my coverage, which is like the top 5 list, the leveling system breakdown, the brutally honest opinion, and raw gameplay for those who want to just see what this title's all about. So with all of that said, thank you for your time. You can hear my fan for my laptop starting to pick up too. Here, thank you guys so much, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.